So here we go with video number 2. This one is on the determinants of aggregate demand. Let's start off by pointing out that the primary thing that determines the level of GDP in the economy is the price level. So if price level is high, the quantity of aggregate demand is very low. If the price level is very low, the quantity of aggregate demand is very high. So when prices change, it alters the quantity of aggregate demand that people are going to be buying in the economy, okay? But it doesn't shift the aggregate demand curve to the left or to the right. So price level changes don't shift the demand curve, they just move us along the demand curve. The things that shift the demand curve are changes in the 4 components of GDP. If there's a change in consumer spending, a change in businessmen spending, investment spending, a change in government spending, or a change in export, foreign spending, then we're going to have a shift of the aggregate demand curve to the right or to the left. What we're saying is at the same price level, we're going to identify that as price level 1, PL1, that's the level of GDP that would normally occur. But if the price level doesn't change, but consumers are buying more stuff for some reason, that point is no longer on the aggregate demand curve. We must have moved to a new aggregate demand curve. It must have shifted to the right. We'll call that AD prime, aggregate demand prime, okay? And we'll call that Y prime. Remember, Y is the level of output. It's the nation's income, but it's also the level of output. The AP exam is going to use Y along the horizontal axis here. All right? Okay, so what things change consumer spending? Your book says consumer wealth, or the wealth effect. Household borrowing, and you need to read the book to explain exactly what these things are. Consumer expectations, in other words, consumer confidence in the economy, and personal taxes. If personal taxes go up, consumers spend less at the same price level. If taxes go down, consumers will spend more at the same price level. So it'll shift the aggregate demand curve right or left. The second thing is investment spending. Your book says that investment spending is determined by real interest rates. If interest rates go up, but the price level in the economy doesn't change, then businessmen will buy more. The AD curve shifts out to the right because investment is a component of AD. If the interest rates go up, businessmen will spend less, and AD will shift back to the left. Okay, we'll call that AD not for the one that shifted to the left there. The third thing that changes the aggregate demand curve is the level of government spending. And remember that government spending is not a function of the economy. It's not a function of the nation's income or price level or anything like that. It's a function of politics. So when government spends more at the same old price level, it shifts the AD curve to the right. When government spends less, it shifts it back to the left again. And the last thing that shifts the AD curve is net export spending, and that is often determined by the income of people overseas. So if the incomes in Europe or in Mexico or in China go up, those people are going to buy more of everything, more of their own home goods, but also they're going to buy more things from the United States. That'll shift the demand curve to the right at the same old price level. And of course, if things go bad in the rest of the world goes into recession, they're buying less of everything, including stuff from the United States. Even though our price level hasn't shifted, aggregate demand will shift to the left because foreigners aren't spending as much. So those are the things that will shift the aggregate demand curve. They're called determinants of aggregate demand, and they are the components of aggregate demand.